Brandon, have you been watching the headlines lately with respect to the Europeans finalized a triumphal effort to land this probe on this comet that's been whizzing through space here. Have you been paying attention to that?
Well, Mike, I have. I will admit that I'm not the biggest space buff in the world, but of course I pay attention to headlines. And I have seen that, and I know that from what I do know, it didn't come off all that successful.
No, I mean it was sort of comical to watch them hide the pain of watching their probe. It was supposed to land on this comet and secure itself to the comet. And it was supposed to launch this drill into the surface of the comet, which is low density, and take samples and bring it up into an oven that's on the probe there, the Philae probe, and cook the samples and send the results back to Earth. And it was supposed to be this they were supposed to, essentially, Brandon, it was all about finding God. And by that I mean they're all very interested in finding out where humanity comes from, finding their creator. They want to find out where they come from, who's the creator. That was essentially the goal of the mission, to find out if life came from a comet that crashed into the Earth, and that's essentially called directed panspermia. That life came from somewhere other than the Earth, and it really was sad to watch these people as their hopes of getting fulfilling the mission in its fullest sense really faded away after this thing ran out of battery juice in about a day or so.
Yeah, Mike, it's unbelievable to watch these guys. Many of them have literally staked their life's work on this happening and on being able to successfully land this thing on the comet and get all this information as you just described. And then we see it not happen. And it's amazing as I'm listening to you there, and you're saying how they're essentially looking for where did life come from. And Mike, it's unbelievable. These guys, the answers are all right here contained in the Scripture. And it just seems that, again, we see not only could they have just looked and found the answers right here before us, but maybe they're dabbling in an area that wasn't even meant for man to go there.
Yeah, it reminds me of an event in the Bible, Brandon, of this guy named Nimrod, and this follows closely after the flood, and it talks. If you go to Genesis 10, the audience, if you go to Genesis 10, you'll see where it says that the generations of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and it gives a list of names of people who were born after the flood. Japheth, Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshach, Tiras, and the list goes on. And then they come to a guy named Nimrod, right? And it says that Nimrod was the son of Cush, and he began to be a mighty one in the earth, and he was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord. And it goes on to talk about his kingdom. And this guy had a vast kingdom, beginning with Babel. And it goes on to name all the different places where this guy ruled his kingdom. And it was a vast kingdom. And all the people, Brandon, as you know, they were all together, and they all spoke one language. We get into chapter 11 here. They all spoke one language, and the whole earth was one language and one speech. And it came to pass, they journeyed from the east. They found a plain land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And they said one to another, let us make brick and burn them throughly. And they made brick for stone, and slime had they for mortar, it says. And they built this tower. And it was this giant city tower. And it was designed, Brandon, so that they could reach heaven. And they wanted to make a name for themselves so they wouldn't be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. They wanted to stay united, stay together. And they were building this thing, this man-made object, this device. People have speculated over what this thing was. Was it really just a tower made out of bricks, or was it something spectacular and scientific in nature? And so there's been lots of talk about what this thing really was. How high could it go, and so on and so on. But as I was watching these events unfold with this probe, people trying to reach heaven, right? Trying to reach up as far as they could go and find out as much as they can. And it reminded me of this story that essentially God sabotaged the tower, right? He brought it down and he confused their speech, and he said, and essentially the purpose for God doing that was, look, you people think you can do everything on your own and so on and so forth. This is going to fail at an epic scale. You can't do anything without me. So I'm just going to do you a favor and spread you around the world. Just get on with the call of subduing the earth and filling it, and fill the earth with my creation. I don't know. Am I reading that wrong?
No, I think you're reading exactly right there, Mike. The Scripture tells us that God looked down on them and saw what they were accomplishing, and chose to scatter them and confuse their language.
Right. So then we fast forward thousands of years to today, right? Today, Brandon. Doesn't it seem like we all have the whole world now? If I could just paint a picture in the audience's mind here, if I may. Imagine this event is going on. You got thousands, perhaps millions of people all gathered around this tower, and everybody's speaking the same language, and they're really not going along with the plan, And we see a similar thing happening in Jerusalem when all the apostles were all together, and they sort of weren't doing the mission of going into the whole world with the gospel, right? So then persecution comes and the whole church scatters around the world. But here we have in this example in Genesis 11, here we have these people. They're all gathered together. They all have one purpose, and that is to reach heaven. And I don't know. It doesn't say enough. It doesn't say enough about it there to get a real clear picture about it. But then it's like God just drops this giant boulder on their plans, and you can imagine this giant boulder. It wasn't really a giant boulder, but just imagine God's power coming down and destroying this thing and just sort of wiping them out, and they can't understand each other. They all scatter. Now, I believe, Brandon, that for thousands of years, the devil has been trying to get everybody back on that same tower, has been trying to reunite the whole world with a common purpose and a common cause against God, to reach up with the mightiness of humanity, and I don't know, to actually be God, perhaps. I don't know if I'm reading that right at all, but it just seems to me like now the scattering has come to an end. The whole world speaks the same language, and the whole world has this united purpose. Everybody wants to reach up to heaven, Brandon. I mean, here we have people. People are dying, giving their lives to reach heaven, to do the exact same thing that they were doing at Babel. People are giving their lives now to do it again. We're seeing the same pattern again here, Brandon. The exact same dynamics are in play here as we had at the Tower of Babel.
Yeah, it's amazing, Mike, what you just said about the devil's plan. You believe is to unite everyone for these same goals and purposes as what we saw here in Genesis. And think about it. That's very biblical when we read in some of the end times language of Revelation about assuming the one world religion, and the whole world would worship this beast and this one world government system. So yeah, absolutely, that's the plan. Is to drag everybody into one, and we're seeing that happen in so many different ways. Even amongst the religious world, with this whole syncretist movement, as you have documented very well, that's being pushed by world leaders.
Right.
But getting back to this with the communication aspect, you're the first person that ever really got my mind clicking on this. Several years ago, you predicted that the internet was to be the new Tower of Babel. And now, with all of these elements we see coming together, you have the internet, you have, like you say, everybody's goal is to reach up to the heavens.
Right.
You have goals that are stated by people like Mark Zuckerberg, the founder of Facebook, who wants to provide, one of his goals is to provide a free and open internet to every human being on the face of the earth.
Wow.
Every human being could communicate with each other at the click of a button. And then think of this, Mike. You say, yeah, but what about the language barrier? Mike, are you aware that Google Translate right now I can type anything I want to in that app in English and hit a button, and it will translate it. I think at this point it's right around 100 languages of the world, and within the next year or so, it's supposed to be up to like 130.
Right, and I mean, I can go to a like, I go to Canada a lot. I spend a lot of my time in the States, but I spend a lot of time in Canada, and of course in Canada we have a province that is predominantly French speaking up in Quebec, and if I go on the internet, like let's say I log into a Wi-Fi spot in Quebec, the login page will be in French. And then in the top right corner, it will ask me, "Do you want to translate this?" I just click translate, and boom, it's in English. So people wonder what's the one world language. Well, it could be just the translation software. That could be the one world language, or it could be something as simple as binary. Binary is the language of computers. It's just It's just ones and zeros. So is the binary language the one world language that everybody speaks today? I don't know, but make no mistake about it. The whole world is speaking the same language. Everybody's on the internet. I mean, look at these. Look at ISIS. ISIS is doing all of their
They're recruiting on the internet.
The recruiting and all of their media stuff is online, and they're tweeting and they're putting their stuff up on the internet. Everything they're doing is up on the internet. Their public relations campaign is all internet based, internet driven. Probably if it wasn't for the internet, half the people they've been beheading wouldn't be beheaded, because a lot of that is being done for public relations and recruiting, which is all being done on through the Tower of Babel system.
Yes. No, Mike, I think you're definitely onto something with this. Like I said, Scripture backs it up. And listen, even look on the good side of some of these technologies. Okay, see, as much as they can be used for evil, I can sit behind on my telephone. I can type into my telephone, and with the push of a button, I can send the gospel to the world. Right. Just like it can be used for evil. So it's almost like Jesus knew this was going to happen in Matthew 24. Where he talks about in the last days the gospel going to everywhere in the world, to the ends of the earth. Well, 50, 75 years ago, that thought was impossible. And now I can do it at the push of a button. So absolutely, we have to look at these technologies and all of these things as we advance, I guess, if you will, here in these last days, and see where they fit in and how they fit in on both sides of things, because ultimately they will be used for evil. Well, there's also some good that comes out of them.
That's right. We are to be wise as serpents, Jesus said, because to use the things of this world to reach the world, and that's the ultimate goal of ppsimmons, to use the internet and get into the tower there and try and pull some of these turkeys out of there and give them a shake and say, hey, you know where you are? Come on out, and be adopted out of that system, because it's going down very soon. But anyway, people may be wondering, why would God be opposed to people reaching the heavens? But Psalm 115 verse 16 says, even the heavens are the Lord's, but the earth hath he given to the children of men. God has plans for the heavens. It's an enormous place, and it's not there for nothing. He's got plans for that. I'm looking forward to exploring it, Brandon, when I get my new body. But
absolutely, you and I both might think about this. Another song tells us that the heavens declare the glory of God.
Right.
So think about that, Mike. Like you said, you're looking forward to exploring it. One day in our new created perfect selves that we will be after this life, we will get to explore the very existence that declares the glory of God to humanity. That's an amazing thought.
Yeah, it is. But for now, our domain is the earth, and the heavens are the Lord's purview. And I think He's made that very clear. When we look back at Nimrod and the Tower of Babel, but also this probe that landed on sort of landed on this comet. A 10-year trip, and it's almost makes it. And I say almost because listen, there was three. There was a main wave to anchor this thing to the comet. Let me just go over for a second. It had 3 feet, And each one of these feet, the pads had screws, ice screws in them. So when this thing hits the comet, it's supposed to screw itself into it. I'm not sure. I don't think that was the primary way. I think that was the final way. Once it had finally settled down, it would screw itself into the comet and just sort of anchor itself there. One of the primary ways it had of securing itself to the comet prior to the anchoring system was a harpoon system. And this harpoon, once it got close enough, it would launch. Now, I heard people who designed this thing. They said that harpoon system was very powerful, and it would launch off of this thing and drive itself into the comet, and then pull via a winch cable system, pull the probe down to the comet. And it also had a third way of securing itself to the comet. It had a thruster on the top of it, Brandon. So it was able to initiate that thruster and push itself toward the comet, and use the thruster to hold itself down to the comet while the screws engaged with the comet and screwed itself and locked itself down. Now imagine this. It had three very intricate systems of attaching itself to the comet, and all three failed. What do you think the odds are of that?
Well, I would say, Mike, that if it's something that we're doing that man was not meant to do, then the odds are 100%.
Thank you. Now imagine this thing. Imagine this thing. This thing is as blistering through space, thousands of miles an hour, and here we got this man-made machine that's up there, and it's launching harpoons at it. This thing's about 4 kilometers wide. It's big, but big is a comparative word. I mean, compared to the moon, it's really tiny. But compared to the probe itself, it's pretty big. But imagine this probe launching harpoons into this thing and drilling into it with screws, and then the thruster on this probe. Once the probe was on the comet, would have acted as a thruster for the comet itself, right? So I don't know. Is it possible that that the Lord was saying, "Look, I've got plans for this comet. You guys are just going to mess it up on me." So this comet the probe hits the comet, bounces off of it twice, and just sort of precariously perches on the edge of a cliff, and it's sort of touching it, sort of not. And it's just kind of there, having very little impact on the comet, just sort of sitting there. And I just find that very interesting. And I have to ask the question, and it's a rhetorical question: did God sabotage the probe? I think it's very possible, just in the same way that He sabotaged the tower.
Absolutely, Mike. I mean, listen, whether people agree or disagree with us on this specific subject, we have to understand that God is sovereign. He is all powerful and all knowing. And if that's what He wanted to do, and we're not meant to dabble in this area of exploration, and then yes, He has the ability to absolutely do that. He is God of the universe.
Right. I mean, people need to realize that the Bible is clear that, well, let's read it again. Even the heavens are the Lord's, but the earth hath He given to the children of men. And people who have these wild-eyed ideas about going to Mars, look at leaving the protection of the Earth's magnetic field is off limits. People are not going to do that. That's not within the realm of any technology that we have today. Leaving that protection is a death sentence, and everybody knows it. It's fun to talk about, but people are pumping billions of dollars into a suicide mission. Everybody knows that a trip to Mars is a one-way trip, and when you get there, likely you'll have cancer. And we've already documented the fact that being out and being bombarded with the cosmic rays of the universe makes people sterile. And at the very least makes their children sterile 100% of the time. So the plans of going into space, I suppose it's a protection from God that it doesn't work, because it would just kill everybody anyway. So, but I don't know, Brandon. I guess we can move on here. I really do feel like there's something to this. That we're seeing a convergence of what happened. I don't know. Let me go over this one more time, because I don't feel like I've said it clearly enough here. At the Tower of Babel in Genesis 11, we have the whole world together. They're building this structure. It's a city with a giant tower reaching up. So their plans are to reach the heaven. Just get up there and see what's up there. Maybe see where they come from. See God, maybe perhaps. And so God confuses them, destroys the tower, scatters them out, gives them all the languages that they have, and scatters them out. But today we're seeing that scattering is over, and the whole world has once again come together with a common speech and a common purpose. To get up into space. There's a reason why Star Trek is so popular, because, God, this whole idea of getting out there and exploring space, it's a popular idea. And so this is just the same thing that we saw back in Genesis 11 happening all over again. The whole world is together, and everybody wants to get together under the banner of humanity. And, it's almost like there's a rejection of God going on to do this, And so I don't know. I guess I've worn that. I beat that horse enough here. We may talk about this again another day, Brandon. But let's just touch briefly on what's going on with the Obama was in Vegas today, touting his immigration executive action that he's about to take here very soon. Give us some thoughts on that.
Oh man, Mike, it's just unbelievable. This guy continues to trample on this country, on this Constitution, and the guy cannot tell the truth. He absolutely cannot tell the truth. He is a man that throws truth to the ground. When it comes to this country, to the United States, our Constitution, he is a man of lawlessness. He refuses to obey the laws that are on the books, even. And we just, we see this once again. But listen, he has just spit in the face of the American people again. And it's just, it's unbelievable. There's so many, just this amnesty thing, man, it's just one more key piece, Mike, of the destruction of the United States. It's you and I just documented here a few weeks ago how this has to happen for Bible prophecy to come true. And we watched a huge piece of that take place today.
If your goal is to degrade and destroy the United States of America, the definition of a country is a 3-part definition. It is borders, language, and culture, right?
Right.
If you take away if people don't speak a common language, you can't do commerce, you can't do business, you can't interact with each other. I know that one of the main prerequisites to being a truck driver in the United States is you have to speak English. In Canada you can get away with it if you speak French, but in the U.S., man, if you're a Canadian truck driver and you hit the border and you can't tell the customs agent what you have on your trailer, they'll send you back because you have to be able to tell them your name, what's on your load. So it's important to protect the language of a country, the culture. I mean, if you erode the culture of a country, you've essentially eroded the ideals for which it stands. I mean, read the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and the Declaration of Independence. It's all about culture. The culture of the country is based on the Constitution for which it stands. The word Constitution means recipe. It means, how do we make a country? Well, here's the recipe. Oh, I know. Let's call it a constitution, A country is constituted of this, and that's the culture. And then borders. Borders are important. I mean, if you don't have borders, I mean, everybody's saying about Syria, hey, Syria doesn't exist anymore because guess what? The borders are gone.
Yeah.
And if the borders evaporate in any country, there's no country. And it's important to secure and so by protecting those borders, you secure you solidify the structure of the country. And I think that if you want to degrade, and I think that may be where we're at today with Obama, degrading and destroy the country. Ultimately, you do have to take care of the border and degrade that and destroy that, and it really does look like he's on his way to doing that. I don't think Obama's stupid. I think he's doing this on purpose to degrade and destroy the country.
Absolutely, Mike. And it was one of the founders of this country, Thomas Jefferson, that said that a country with no borders is not a country. And we've seen a huge piece of that, get taken away this week. And isn't it amazing, the two other things that you said, language and culture? And language, I know you said, like, for instance, in truck driving, you have to be able to speak English, but think about, Mike, before the borders thing became huge news. I mean, I remember 10, 15 years ago when the language issue started being a big deal, that, well, we can't force them to speak English because that's not right. You know, that wouldn't be right. That's racist, or whatever you want to say. And so that whole battle, the language battle, started way back then. And then, you know, the culture thing, you know, there's obviously, as immigrants have come to this country over the years, in a lot of cases, they have formed their own communities and kept their own culture and heritage from where they came from. But, you know, we're starting to see almost a cultural shift, and now the borders thing is right in our face. So all three elements of that, of what we need to have a true country, are under attack right now.
Under attack, right. You know, Avi Lipkin said back in 2008 in interviews, including in interviews on Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups, he said, look, Obama's here, is a Saudi plant here by design to destroy the country. And here we have exactly that happening before our very eyes. And, you know, the Bible's very clear about this Antichrist figure, and again, you know, we're just pointing to the markers here. We're not coming on saying he is the Antichrist, but you know, one of the names of this Antichrist figure is an abomination that causes desolation. You know, and desolation and makes desolate. It's wiping out the existence of something is what desolation is, and. You know, if Obama's caliphate comes, you know, and many people are saying that he is the ultimate caliph out there. You know, he's going to be in charge of the Islamic hordes when they finally make their big push to take over the United States, and he's the one who's going to lead the charge, by my estimate. You know, he's by extension controlling what's going on over there with the Arab Spring and the ISIS moves and so on and so forth. I mean, it almost seems like everything that's happening in the Middle East is taking its marching orders straight from the Oval Office.
Yeah, it certainly appears that way, Mike, and that's what I was going to say. It seems like he's in charge now,
right?
Just from an outsider's perspective. But, you know, isn't it amazing, Mike, all of these... And listen, it should be no secret to anyone listening to this by now that at ppsimmons we believe that we are living in what, Mike, not the last days, but the very last days.
Right.
You know, and all of these spiritual markers that we see for these things, and key words that were given to us by Jesus himself and by Paul and by John and by Daniel, and we're seeing these words, these key words and phrases and these spirits that they talked about. We're seeing all of... Listen, let me just say this. When in American history are you aware of that the president has been called lawless by Congress people, senators, news people, influential business people, over and over and over again? Certainly not in my lifetime, and I'm not aware of any time in the history of this country where that was just a precedent. That every week another major political figure is calling the president lawless.
And lawlessness is... it almost seems like there are people in the world with power, with influence, with a voice, who are trying to send us a message here. What was it? Somebody said something about Billy Graham recently called him a lawless one.
Well, the quote from Graham was, "In these lawless times that we are living in." You know, and again, it just speaks to the language and to the spirit of Antichrist that would consume the world. You know, and it all ties right into what we were just talking about with this new Tower of Babel, and we are seeing the convergence of Bible prophecy, things that were spoken of thousands of years ago, and we're watching it happen on the nightly news. We're watching it happen on our computer screens, and it is so amazing when you look at the world with biblical eyes, like you and I try to do, and we're certainly not perfect or the all-knowing, but the little things that you pick up on and the things that God reveals to you, especially in these last days that we're living in.
You know, I just want people to realize that we're not doom and gloom people. Brandon, I really want the Lord to come back soon, because if the way things keep going the way they're going, people are just going to destroy themselves, aren't they? I mean, here we have homosexuality being thrust into the mainstream, and these people are hurting bad. These people are hurting. These are hurting people, and our goal is not to be killjoys trying to rob them of any love in their life. We're saying, look, this is not the best that God has for you, and stop doing this to each other. This is not healthy, and many experts are coming out and saying today that this sort of activity is in fact a mental disorder. And there are people out there with clout and influence in these psychiatric community who are still of the mind that this can be cured, and there's no reason to accept this, and embracing this lifestyle is enabling a mental disorder. And we have that going on. And we have liberalism, another mental disorder. It came out this week that one of Barack Obama's a dyed-in-the-wool liberal, one of his biggest financial contributors, was just arrested for raping a 15-year-old. I mean, here we have this sort of liberal mindset, raping 15, and was a 15-year-old boy, by the way, raping little children. Liberalism is a disease in the world. And Brandon, I have to tell you that my heart goes out to these people. I have, and it always has. I mean, I had one of my uncles, my favorite uncle, died of AIDS, and he had so much regret. And then we have the disease of atheism. Christopher Hitchens. Christopher Hitchens committed suicide by liberalism, and he admitted this. He admitted this before he died. By the way, he said, "Look." When in his debates, Christians would ask him, where does your morality come from? And he said, well, my morality comes from within me. And yet he smoked and drank himself to death. He died of cancer from too much booze and too many cigarettes. So much for his moral compass. And what we're saying is liberalism is killing you. And we're saying liberalism is nothing more than a fancy name for sinful living. That's all it is. Yeah. It's doing whatever you want without any restrictions. And we're saying, Brandon, I'm just saying, look, the number one reason I want the Lord to come back soon is to turn the light bulbs on in people's heads and say, look, this is why I instituted these things, and you can do so much better. And the Lord, by His very presence, will cause the hearts and minds of people to return to Him and repent. Brandon, I want is he coming back soon? Give me the day and the hour here. When is he coming?
Mike, I certainly cannot, nor will I give you the day and the hour, because I don't know.
You don't know?
But I do know this, brother. I do know that Jesus told us to watch for the signs of His return, to be alert. I do know that Paul told us that if we were watching and alert, that we would not be surprised and caught off guard. I do know that Daniel was told to seal up everything that was shown to him until the time of the end, when it would be unsealed and unveiled. Right. And Mike, I just see the unsealing and the unveiling. I see the signs that Jesus warned us of and told us to look for. I see the things that Paul talked about in John and Daniel happening, and the prophets from the Old Testament, Ezekiel and Isaiah, and we're watching it happen, Mike. I just believe that it's going to be soon, brother.
It's going to be soon. I agree. Tomorrow, maybe? Will it be tomorrow, Brandon?
That would not be soon enough, but...
All right, man. Well, listen, if it's not tomorrow, we'll see you next week, okay? It was great getting together with you again, and you've been listening to another edition of the Prophecy Report. My name is Mike Shoesmith, and with my co-host, Brandon Gallups. Brandon, close it out for us.
Mike, thank you. I have enjoyed it immensely, as always. And folks, just remember, keep your eyes on Jesus, because if you do that, then all of this chaos, confusion, and madness in this world around you will make a little bit more sense. And
Brandon Gallups, you heard it with your own ears. He said Jesus might come back tomorrow.
I hope he does, brother. I'm waiting.
Oh, we'll see you next time.